Hey y'all. Hey. I know I've been a little MIA. We're not gonna talk about it. We are gonna talk about it. Not right now though. Right now we're gonna get into the story because it's been what, 3 months? So we are just gonna get into the story. Welcome back. I am back. We'll get into the details after the intro. Do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and let's go ahead and get into this video. We're not gonna talk about it. We are not gonna talk about it. I already know. I know when the last time I posted a true crime video. I know. Because I'm the one that posted it. And it's been almost 4 months. Sorry. But none of that matters. I am here now. I was supposed to post this video. Actually, it was supposed to go up a couple days ago, but doing the research took longer than I thought. And then it got to a point where I know it sounds terrible, but I kind of just didn't care no more about going like in depth, which is one of the reasons why I really stopped doing these videos. But it's also not fair to the people that subscribe to my channel for these videos. So I've decided to designate one day where I'm going to post all of my true crime content, and that day is going to be Tuesday. It is going to be True Crime Tuesday. I know, cliche, whatever, but that's the day I'm gonna do it. So that is for all of the people that have subscribed to me for the true crime content. Yes, this video is not going up on a Tuesday, but the rest of them will. It'll just give me more time to prep my cases, make sure I have everything together so that it doesn't fall apart like this case just might. But yeah, that's all I have to say about that. Let's go ahead and get into today's person of interest. Andrew Philip Cunanan was born August 31st, 1969 in National City, California, making him a Virgo. Virgo, this one is y'all's. And I really hate to be that person, but he displays some very Virgo behavior. If you know, you know. He very much gives Virgo, very much so. He was born the youngest of 4 children to Pete and Marianne Cunanan. Pete was he was a retired Navy veteran. He got promoted to Chief Petty Officer, and then once he was discharged from the Navy, he started work as a stockbroker, which is pretty good, especially for, that's probably gonna sound bad, but especially for a Filipino family in the 60s. Like, if you were non-white, well, they were white passing, I guess. Neither here nor there. They were doing well for themselves in the late 60s, early 70s. Not much is known about Andrew's childhood. However, in 1981, his father enrolled him into the Bishop School. I have no idea what that means. I'm assuming it's like a religious type of schooling, maybe. And when he was enrolled in this school, it was there that he would meet his best friend Elizabeth, and he also got tested, and it was found that he had an IQ of 147. So he was extremely smart, which he was too smart for his own good, which is typical Virgo behavior. During his teens, he gained a reputation of being a very, very, and I quote, prolific liar. Like, that's what I saw in my sources, prolific liar. And he also changed up his appearance a lot. Following all of the events that transpired during this case, it was said that he possibly had antisocial personality disorder, but he was never like evaluated, so they could never prove it. But he also changed his appearance a lot. Did I mention that? Yeah, he changed his appearance a lot, and he told just lies about everything. Like, he lied about whatever, and he lied to like make himself look better than to add glitter to who he was. Like, he embellished. That's what I'll say. He was an embellisher. He embellished who he was, which again is typical Virgo behavior. He came out as gay when he was in high school. Elizabeth was actually the first person that he told. And shortly after coming out, he began dating older, wealthy men. I'm assuming that he was well liked because he was voted least likely to be forgotten when he was in high school. And boy, they did not know how right they would be. After he graduated, he enrolled in the University of California at San Diego, where he majored in American history. And shortly after finishing his freshman year in high school, his dad decided to abandon the family and he moved back to the Philippines because he was about to be arrested for embezzlement. Remember I said he was a stockbroker? Yeah, he was stealing money. So to keep from not getting caught, he didn't pack up the whole family. He just packed up himself and moved to the Philippines. Like, the family is Filipino. I'm not sure if Pete was born in the Philippines or if he just had, like, I don't know if he was like first generation or second generation Filipino American. But he went back. So, and following his dad abandoning the family, Andrew started acting out. He was frequenting a lot of the gay clubs in the area. He was drinking, he was partying, and news of his sexuality ended up getting back to his mom. His mom was like extremely religious, and when she found out, she confronted him about it, and it ended up leading to an argument. And the argument escalated to the point where Andrew pushed her up against the wall and dislocated her shoulder. I only know like I only know of like 2 Filipino people. I have never ever heard of them like having issues like that where they, I don't know. Like, you know how every demographic of people would be like, he did what to his mama? I have never heard, I don't know how Filipino households get down or if it was just their household, but that is insane. Like, how do you throw your mother up against the wall because you gay? Like, you threw her up against the wall and dislocated her shoulder. She wouldn't, I don't know what the conversation consisted of, but I'm pretty sure nothing that she said to him warranted him throwing her up against the wall and dislocating her shoulder. That is insane. In 1989, he ended up dropping out of college and he moved from San Diego. No, he moved from San Diego to San Francisco with his best friend Elizabeth and her boyfriend Phil. During his time in San Francisco, he was wilding even more than before. He was still dating wealthy older men, but he also started making like violent pornographic films. During his time, he also began, like, he was doing anything that he could to survive at this point. And in addition to making violent porn, he also, what's the word I'm looking for? He started selling drugs. Yeah, he started selling drugs. He was selling opioids, cocaine, weed, and of course, he was taking these drugs himself, but he was also smoking methamphetamine, crystal meth. So yeah, he was just, I don't know what was going on with him. I don't think we'll ever know what was going on with him. And as he was using drugs, he also started going by several aliases. And I actually have to read this off my notes because this is a lot of names. Andrew Da Silva, Lieutenant Commander Andy Cummings, Drew Cunningham. What? Like, in December of 1995, Andrew would meet who he claimed to be the love of his life, David Madsen, at a bar in San Francisco. David was originally from Minneapolis. He was an architect. He was just there on business, and the two hit it off pretty well, and they actually entered into a long distance relationship. However, the relationship fizzled out in the spring of 1996. David broke up with Andrew because he said that something was a little bit shady with him, and he just was like, nah, no. So he broke things off with him, and Andrew did not take it well. He did not take it well at all. He considered David the love of his life, and when they broke up, he immediately went into a downward spiral. Unable to process the breakup, Andrew began drinking. He began drinking excessively. He was abusing prescription painkillers, and he went back to smoking meth. And he was just a hot mess. He was a hot ass mess. He began dating another older, wealthy gentleman by the name of Norman, but he broke things off with Norman in September of 1996. I guess he still wasn't able to process everything that was going on with breaking up with David and everything. So he ended things with Norman, and this was not a good idea because Norman was hosting him, and he was also supporting him financially. By hosting him, if you don't know what I mean, hosting is like he was providing him shelter. So he was living with him, and he was also supporting him financially. So when he broke things off, it just got terrible all over again. It just was never good. Now, following the breakup, because he no longer had anyone to support him financially, Andrew would end up maxing out all of his credit cards on like hotels, food, places to stay, things like that. And because he had maxed out all of his cards, it forced him to go back to selling drugs just to be able to get by. His spiral was so bad that even one of his closest friends, Jeffrey kind of like distanced himself from Andrew because he had a lot going on. And he even went to his former roommate, a man named Michael, and he told Michael, he was like, hey, Andrew's selling drugs again. I'm about to like cut him off because he got too much going on. Because Jeffrey was also in the Navy, just like Andrew's father. He was in the Navy, and he retired, and he was now like a manager for a propane company. So he had like a lot going on, and he wasn't about to let that be ruined by Andrew and his bullshit, which is totally understandable. So it is now April of 1997, and Andrew is telling his closest friends that he is planning on moving. He no longer wants to live in California, and I'm not 100% sure because, hello, we were unable to get all of the information. But you'll see why I say this. I think he and David were planning on maybe getting back together, but he decided that he was going to be moving from San Francisco to Minneapolis. Again, not sure why. I think it does have something to do with the fact that David lived there. Maybe they were considering getting back together. I'm not sure. I don't think we'll know. But the reason that Andrew gave for leaving San Francisco was that he was going to take care of business matters with Jeff. I, again, have no idea what that means, because Andrew didn't have a job. He was like a full-time sugar baby, and Jeff worked for a propane company. So I'm not understanding what business matters. Well, maybe, let me not jump ahead. Whatever. So he said he had business matters to tie up. So he was like, yep, I'm about to leave. I'm moving. And that's it. Like, he just decided that he was moving. And although Jeff said that he was, distancing himself from Andrew, he did know about the he did know that he was coming to visit, of course, but he was not looking forward to it. He told his sister that he didn't want Andrew to come, like, at all. Like, the details are very, very murky because, well, you'll find out why. Like, it's not a lot of detail that I can really give in this case, and it's so frustrating because I want to give as much information as I can, but I physically cannot. It's not a lot of information that I can give as to why certain events transpired. I just can't do it. But this is where, like, the case kind of gets a little bit muddy because, again, there aren't a whole lot of details. I can only tell you what the information that I have. So before Andrew even got out there, once again, Jeffrey is talking to his former roommate Michael, and he tells Michael, like, Andrew and I got into it, but, you know, he's still coming out here, blah blah blah. Not sure why they got into it. I do not have that information. Not sure about anything. Like, I hate to keep saying it over and over again, but I literally have no information, like barely any information. But I wanted to cover this case, so we're gonna shut up. So Jeff was under the impression that Andrew was coming to visit. He was not under the impression that Andrew was literally moving from San Francisco to Minneapolis. That is probably what caused a lot of confusion leading up to the events of the case, because there was a lot of, like, Andrew just, like, flew through life. Like, he didn't have a plan. He didn't execute a plan. He just did whatever he wanted to do. He had no responsibilities. He had nothing. He just did whatever he wanted to do with no rhyme or reason. So that could be one of the reasons that they did get into it, because he just up and moved and he didn't have anywhere to stay. Again, I don't know. So April 24th of 1997, Andrew and 4 of his friends meet up at Andrew and 4 of his friends meet up at Hillcrest, California Cuisine for a going away party for Andrew. And usually whenever Andrew would go out with these friends, because he was a sugar baby and he always had, you know, someone sponsoring him, he always had money and everything, he would usually cover the tab. But on this particular occasion, he was not able to cover the tab. Not only was he not able to cover the tab, but when it came time for him to purchase his plane ticket, he had to call his credit card company and get an extension on his credit line to be able to afford his ticket. So when Andrew arrived to Minneapolis, he stayed at David Madsen's house the first night that he was there. The second night that he was there, he actually stayed at Jeff's house, but Jeff was actually out of town with his boyfriend John. And while Jeff was out of town with John, he actually had a slight argument with Andrew. I'm not sure about what. It could be that Andrew was at his house, that he was overstaying his welcome, that he wasn't going back to San Francisco. Girl, it could be anything. But they got into it. And Andrew told, not Andrew, sorry. David told, not David, they talking about me. Jeff, yes, him. Jeff told John that when he got back to Minneapolis, he was going to have a serious conversation. That's what it said, serious conversation with Andrew. However, when they got back to Jeff's apartment, Andrew was nowhere to be found. There was no trace of him. All of his belongings were gone. In addition to all of his belongings being gone, something was also missing, and that was Jeff's gun. Jeff had a Taurus semi-automatic pistol, and it was missing. So Andrew ended up calling Jeff later that night. When he left Jeff's house, he went back to David's. So he ended up calling Jeff on the phone later on that evening. And he was like, hey, you know, I have your gun, you can come and get it, and also we need to talk about, you know, whatever transpired earlier that day. This is just a side note. If my friend, who is obviously deranged, steals my gun and then calls me to ask me to come and pick it up, I'm calling the police. There's no way I am leaving to go and get that gun. I just won't have a gun no more. Or I will file a police report. But I am under no circumstances going to get that weapon. That is insane. But neither here nor there. Jeff went to go get the gun. He went to go get the gun. He left after, like, shortly after 9 p.m. And it was said that he was supposed to arrive at, what is his name? David. He was supposed to arrive at David's apartment around 9:45. So when Jeff arrived at David's apartment, immediately he was beat to death with a hammer. Immediately. Following him no longer being on earth with us anymore, Andrew rolled his body up in a rug, and he placed the rug behind the sofa. And I know what you're wondering. How do you murder someone in someone else's apartment without them finding out? Well, the attack took place in front of David. Yes, it took place in front of David at his own apartment. So if I had to guess, I would say Andrew stole the gun from Jeff's house, went to David's house, held David at gunpoint, called Jeff over to David's while David is being held at gunpoint, and then murders Jeff in front of David to show him something. It makes sense. At this point, all we can do is guess, but I like my theory, so we're gonna go with my theory. So David then becomes Andrew's hostage, but no one really thought that he was a hostage because no one really knew what was going on. Yeah, no one knew anything. They were still like seen out in public. They would go and get lunch. They would go out to places. It was as if nothing ever happened. The one thing that was a little bit different is that David wasn't allowed to go to work. And remember, he's an architect. So the members at his firm were like, David has not been to work, but we've been seeing him like out on the town, everything like that. That's how you know you got a good job. Because if you got a regular job and you stop showing up, but they see you out eating lunch and shit, you ain't got no job no more. Like, you just don't have a job. Because his coworkers cared about him and they were so concerned, they decided to go over to his apartment to like see what was going on with him, see if he was sick, figure out why he's not showing up to work. But unfortunately, when they arrived at his apartment, David was not there, but there was a very foul odor coming from behind the sofa. And that would just so happen to be the body of Jeffrey Trail. So once the body of Jeffrey Trail was found, police were immediately alerted, and David and Andrew became suspects. So they were still being seen out in public together. And the last day that they were seen, well, the last day that David was seen alive was May 5th. The morning of May 3rd, his body was found with a gunshot wound to the head and the back in Rush Lake, like near Rush Lake, Minnesota. And that it was just the end of it. He drove a red Jeep, and the red Jeep was nowhere to be found, and that is because Andrew was in the Jeep. Yeah. Andrew drove that Jeep all the way to Chicago, and when he was going to Chicago, he was going to meet up with a 72-year-old man by the name of Lee Miglin. Now, again, this is where it gets kind of tricky because no one knows if Lee and Andrew knew each other. The family insists that the attack was just at random, but because of the nature of the attack, FBI agent Greg McCrary said that because of the nature of the crime and how everything happened, it had to be motive behind it. And I am going to go into just a little bit of details. So I would say fast forward about 30 seconds if you're not trying to hear it. Starting now. So when Andrew arrived at Lee's residence, I don't know what transpired, but what I do know is he was bound at his wrists and ankles with duct tape, and his head was also wrapped with duct tape, and he was stabbed over 20 times with a screwdriver, and then his throat was slit with a hacksaw. So that is definitely not a random attack to me. There has to be some type of motive behind it to me. I'm gonna say to me because somebody out there might disagree. I don't know. But it just doesn't seem like, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. So following this, when they were inspecting the crime scene, they went to Lee's garage, and he had two vehicles, and one of them was missing. He drove a green Lexus LS. Yes, green Lexus LS sedan. And it was missing. But what they did find was David Madsen's red Jeep parked on the street, like not far from the crib. Not far from the house. I'm so sorry. So yeah. Now, one thing that was different about the Lexus than the Jeep is that the Lexus had a car phone, and the car phone had the car phone activity showed that between May 4th and May 8th, the car was in Philadelphia, and then on May 9th, the car was in New Jersey. Upon arriving in New Jersey, Andrew shot and killed 45-year-old William Reese while he was working. He was a cemetery owner, cemetery, whatever they're called. He worked at a cemetery, and he was shot at the cemetery, and his wife noticed that something was kind of fishy when he didn't come home. So she called the police, and when the police showed up to the cemetery, they saw the body of William Reese. They also saw the green Lexus LS sedan, and they noticed that his red Chevrolet pickup truck was missing. So it's assumed that Andrew killed William Reese to steal his pickup truck. Following him stealing the pickup truck, he decided to go to Florida. So after stealing the pickup truck, he decided to drive down to Miami Beach, Florida. And when he got there, he stayed at the Normandy Plaza Hotel for $29 a night, and he will always pay the $29 in cash. What he had to do to get that money, one can only imagine, but he always paid cash, $29 a night. So a month after arriving in Miami, oh, my ankle. Andrew was placed on the FBI 10 most wanted fugitives list, and he did not care. He did not care at all. He was hiding in plain sight. He would go and steal things from people, take it to the pawn shop to get the money for it, but use his real name as if police don't go to pawn shops to catch criminals. He literally did not care. He did not care at all. July 14th would actually be the last day that Andrew would stay at the Normandy Plaza Hotel. he checked out of the hotel without paying his final $29. It's assumed that he didn't pay it because he didn't have it, but neither here nor there. He was no longer staying at that hotel. So now it is July 15th. Italian fashion designer Gianni Versace is taking his routine walk at around 8:30, 8:45 in the morning. He walks to the newspaper stand, he purchases fashion magazines, and then he goes back home where he is with his partner. And upon arriving to his residence, he is shot in the head. He is also shot in his left cheek. And the gunman, who is Andrew, runs away. Now, it is unknown why Andrew shot Gianni Versace, but Andrew himself said that in 1990 he met Gianni when he was doing a costume design for the Richard Strauss opera. Is it an opera? I think it's an opera. Capriccio. Gianni says that this is not true, and Gianni's sister Donatella has also said that this is not true. Where Andrew came up with the story, nobody knows, but they think that that is motivation for him killing him because he didn't acknowledge that he knew him. So I don't know. No one knows, and we'll never know, because of course Gianni was taken to the hospital where he was pronounced dead at 9:21 a.m. at, I think it's Jackson Memorial Hospital. Yeah. Witnesses did see the attack take place, and when someone tried to chase Andrew down, he ended up losing them when he ran into a car park. I watch too much British true crime. They always say car park. Garage. He ran into a parking garage, and that is where he lost the people that were chasing him. So when police arrived to the scene, they asked the girl, too much true crime, not enough makeup, hold on. So when police were called to the scene of the crime and doing their investigation, the witnesses that were there said that they attempted to chase the gunman down to the parking garage that he lost them in. And when the police went to search the area, they ended up finding the red pickup truck that they had been looking for that was stolen from William Reese. And when they found it and looked inside of it, they found clothes belonging to Andrew Cunanan. They also found newspaper clippings of the crimes that he had committed. He was, I guess, keeping them as trophies. But his belongings were in the vehicle, so that was all of the evidence that they needed. And a manhunt. Like, my mom, I mean, hello, I was 1.5 when this, I was almost 2 when this happened, but my mom remembers the manhunt, and she says that it was serious. I mean, you can't just kill an Italian fashion designer and think that they're not gonna come looking for you. But she said that the manhunt was huge, and not only was the manhunt huge, but it was long. It was the longest manhunt. It lasted for 8 days. 8 days. They could not find this man. That is longer than the O.J. Simpson Bronco chase. 8 days this man was on the run. So they stayed posted at the parking garage just to see if he was going to show back up to retrieve his belongings or just return for whatever reason. And he never did. On July 23rd of 1997, there was a 911 call that was placed by a caretaker of some properties. She reported hearing a gunshot, and when the police arrived, they found the deceased body of Andrew Cunanan, who had a gunshot wound to the head, and that was the end of that. He took his own life on a houseboat, and that's pretty much it. That wraps up the case. Again, because of the fact that everyone is literally not alive, I don't want to say the D word, because they are not alive to say anything. We have no idea the motive. We have no idea his relationship with some of his victims. We have no idea of anything that happened at all. We just don't know. I know I've been saying that the whole case, but hey, we don't know. And it's sad because I know the families want answers. And a lot of people don't even know that he murdered other people. A lot of people just know him as the Versace killer, which kind of sucks because I think that Gianni kind of, I mean, I hate to say it like this, but I think everybody else kind of had it worse. Like, Gianni's was just a random attack, but everybody else kind of knew Andrew. Like, he murdered his ex and one of his really good friends after holding him hostage for days. Like, it's just, I don't know. I don't like that. I mean, of course, it's because he's an Italian fashion designer. He's a public figure. He's a well-known person. But it kind of sucks that he is the most known victim of Andrew Cunanan when he literally murdered 4 other people. So, yeah. Andrew's body was cremated and his ashes are stored in a mausoleum in San Diego. There was also a rumor after the murders took place that the reason why Andrew did all of this was because he found out that let's try that again. It was speculated that his motive for the attacks was because he had found out that he was HIV positive, but following his death, they actually did blood work on him and he was HIV negative. So that was immediately debunked. That was not true. This case has been turned into a lot of movie and TV adaptations. The most famous being the 2nd season of American Crime Story, which is titled The Assassination of Gianni Versace. It does tell the story of, it kind of bounces back and forth, but it mainly focuses on Andrew Cunanan, and it does touch on the other murders that he committed before he assassinated Gianni. So if you have not seen it, I highly recommend watching it. It's actually pretty good. I don't remember if I finished it or not, but it is pretty good. I haven't yet to see a season of American Crime Story that just wasn't good. Like, the O.J. Simpson one was amazing. I have not finished Impeachment, but the episodes that I saw were pretty good. So, yeah, there's that. The actor that played Andrew in the American Crime Story actually won an Emmy for his portrayal. What was his name? Darren Criss. That was his name. And he won an Emmy Award for his portrayal of Andrew Cunanan. He did a very good job. I totally see it. But that is all I have for this case. I've been doing all this talking. Let me do a lip real quick and I'm gonna come back. So yes, that is the end of today's case. No, I'm not putting no lashes on because I'm not going nowhere. I'm actually about to go to the gym. So I just wanted to put this video out. But thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you Tuesday. Don't forget to leave case suggestions and everything down below, because I don't have a case prepared for Tuesday. So please give me ideas and whatnot so that I can have something to post on Tuesday so that this problem doesn't happen again. See, when y'all don't give me recommendations, I don't know what to do. And then we end up like this, all looking at each other crazy. So leave suggestions down below on a case that you want me to cover, and I'll cover it on Tuesday. Every Tuesday. Unless something comes up. So yes, thank you for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. Case suggestions down below. I will see you in my next video.